Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hack. In this video, you're checking out a brand new guide for companions coming to the ESO Blackwood chapter. And this video is all about companion skills. We'll be looking at every single skill that companions have access to, whether it's class skill lines, weapons, armor, guild skills, passives, even companion ultimates, you name it, we're gonna check it out in this guide. So hopefully this will give you a great idea of what companions have to offer and let you start theory crafting some builds right away. Now if you have no idea what a companion is, I have another video for that too. Link will be down in the description if you're interested. But all that being said, let's jump into the skills. Starting off with the weapon skills for companions, these level up, by the way, by using a weapon in combat. For two-handed, we've got Staggering Swing. This is basically like your Dizzy Swing type ability. Does physical damage, stuns an enemy, and knocks them back 4 meters. Then you've got Sunder, which is a cleave ability. This is going to hit all enemies in front of the companion, doing physical damage and additional physical damage over time. By the way, these tooltips are not buffed, so these can increase with different gear options. Finally, Sever is another two-handed ability that is an execute, similar to Executioner, so bonus damage when your enemy's below 25% health. Now, I do like this skill line for the companions. There's some built-in utility here, what with the stun from the Dizzy Swing ability, and then the built-in execute on Sever. This is a nice combination for just a brawler-style companion build, in my opinion. Next, we've got the one-handed shield line, which is most likely going to be pretty popular for tank build companions. Starting with the provoke skill. This is basically your taunt, so taunting the enemy to attack the companion for 15 seconds. It does have a 12-second cooldown, so they'll be able to maintain that aggro pretty well in most cases. Next up, Bashing Bulwark is our gap closer with a stun at the end. Quite a long cooldown here, 16 seconds, but it is effective on single targets at range. And then finally, On Guard is actually a nice damage shield for your companion, 25% of their max health for 6 seconds with a pretty short cooldown, 8 seconds. So they'll be able to maintain this pretty often as well. Now, this is one of my favorite skill lines on the companions, very flexible and it's useful, right? You have the taunt to gain aggro from a boss or something like that, plus the damage shield to help keep the companion alive against some tougher, harder hitting enemies. It's very good. The gap closer is a little bit more situational, but you can use it to make your companion a little bit faster on the battlefield, which is nice as well. Let's talk about Dual Wield, another weapon skill line available for companions. Swift Assault is going to be our main damage skill. Hits an enemy with 5 consecutive attacks that each do physical damage with an 8-second cooldown. Spinning Steel is going to be our AoE attack, similar to Steel Tornado, obviously. Does triple damage to enemies below 25% health, so you do get a bit of an execute effect on the Dual Wield skill line too. And then Razor Cape is pretty interesting here. Similar to how this affects players, the Raiders also shield them from attacks, reducing their damage taken by 20% for that 8-second duration with a 12-second cooldown. So they won't be able to have it up all the time, but when it's up, this is a good defensive buff for your companion, helping them to stay alive a little bit longer. So Dual Wield ends up being a nice combination, I think, of both damage and survivability. You have the AoE with the additional bonus execute damage below 25% health. The single target spammable is not super amazing, but Razor Cloak with that 20% damage reduction, I think that's going to be pretty good for companions, helping them not die as much in like trash fights. You want to try to lower that cooldown if you can, and there are actually gear traits that help lower the cooldown of companion abilities, so that might be something that you want to look into. Let's check out the bow skill line next, starting with Piercing Arrow. This has an 8-second cooldown. It does physical damage, so it's just a basic DPS ability. Then we've got Trick Shot, which is our arrow spray style ability. This has a 16-second cooldown, damages and immobilizes enemies in front of the companion for 4 seconds. I like this one, actually. It's a nice crowd control option. And then our third and final bow ability is going to be Viper's Bite. So this is our poison arrow style skill. It gives you upfront damage and then damage over time. I like this skill a lot for DPS style companions What's nice about it is, of course, they get to stay at range, so they're not going to be taking as much damage as they would normally. And if you can reduce some of their cooldowns, they can fire off these skills pretty quick and do some decent damage. Plus, it just looks really cool to have an archer companion, I think. So I like this playstyle for companions for sure. Next up for the Destruction Staff, we have the Destructive Blast. This does different effects based on the type of staff that you equip your companion with. Flame Blast knocks them back. Frost Blast taunts them for 15 seconds. And Shock Blast deals additional damage to enemies around them. 16-second cooldown on this one. Then we've got Elemental Barricade. This is just a basic wall of elements, so AoE damage over time. And then Arcane Nova is going to be our AoE ability, direct damage. If you're looking for a caster DPS style companion, this is definitely a good option for you. However, I think the skills, when you look at all of them together, they're a little bit lackluster compared to some of the other weapon skills, because the last skill only fires in melee range, while the other ones are from a distance. But maybe with some mixing and matching and other skill lines, you might be able to make this work.
Victory is cruel. Defeat is...
Our last weapon ability set's going to be the Restoration Staff. So Rejuvenation, 12-second cooldown. It's an 8-second heal over time. Heals the companion and a nearby ally for quite a bit of health. And this is unbuffed, so you can raise that tooltip with some of the companion-specific traits. Mending Incantation is another very nice ability. Look at the bonus spell and physical resistance you get for 8 seconds. 10k bonus resistances, plus a nice little burst heal. 16-second cooldown on this one. And then Mystic Fortress, this is very powerful, can literally save you, save your life here. So 23,000 damage shield when the companion or an ally is below 25% health. And there's only an 8-second cooldown on this too, which means it's pretty much always going to be ready for you. Now, this skill line on companions I like a lot. The abilities, as we saw, are very powerful, whether it's that bonus resistance, the extra heal over time, or the quick damage shield when you're low health. This is a very powerful skill set, and when you combine this with some of the other healing capabilities that we'll see from the class skill lines in a couple minutes, yeah, companion healers might be pretty good. We're going to talk about armor abilities next, and these are learned by the companion just by slotting at least 3 pieces of a certain armor weight, so light, medium, and heavy. Light armor gets the haste ability. This lets the companion reset the cooldowns of all of their abilities, but this does have a pretty long cooldown itself, so keep that in mind. Each armor skill line does have a passive as well, so flow increases the healing done by the companion and increases damage done for each piece of light armor. For medium armor, we have the vanish ability. The companion will disappear in a puff of smoke, becoming invisible, causing most enemies to stop attacking them, so basically saving the companion from getting defeated in combat. Flexibility passive increases the damage done and decreases the cooldown of roll dodge for each piece of medium armor equipped. And finally, for the heavy armor skill line, we have the bulwark ability. The companion becomes unstoppable, blocking and reflecting all attacks for 5 seconds. This is only triggered below 75% and when fighting a boss type monster, not normal enemies. And then the heavy armor passive increases healing received and increases the amount of damage the companion can block, again, for each piece of heavy armor equipped. Now, I like how all 3 abilities support different playstyles. Light armor is going to support more damage, medium armor is going to support avoiding damage, and then heavy armor for blocking or mitigating damage. But the main problem that you need to think about with these 3 armor abilities is currently the cooldown is just really long, over 30 seconds to trigger this one ability, and then when you do trigger it, it's fairly short. Are these worth putting on your bar? Maybe in some cases, depending on the companion build that you're trying to set up, but in some cases, maybe something else you might want to put in there that has a shorter cooldown. Next up, let's talk about guild skill lines for companions, and these are going to be earned by completing guild dailies for each of these 3 guilds. For the Fighters Guild, we have Sniping Silver. Companion fires a crossbow at an enemy, dealing physical damage. It does double damage if the enemy is undead, Daedra, or werewolf. Then you've got Ritual of Salvation. This is like the Rune of Protection skill. 16-second cooldown here with an 8-second duration. And anyone, including the companion standing in the rune, reduces damage by 20%. Also, if the attacker is undead, Daedra, or werewolf, the rune reduces an additional 20%, so up to 40%. Finally, Biting Trap has an 8-second cooldown. This is a sharpened blade trap that lasts for 8 seconds, immobilizes the enemy for 4 seconds, and if the enemy is undead, Daedra, or werewolf, they'll take additional damage. Fighter's Guild abilities for companions are pretty cool because they do bonus damage to undead, Daedra, and werewolves. So particularly that crossbow that can hit for 14, 15k in a single shot. And obviously the Circle of Protection ability is going to be quite nice if you're trying to take on a more difficult enemy like a world boss or a dungeon boss, something like that. If you stand in that as well as your companion, remember you're taking 20% less damage. So putting that somewhere into your rotation for your companion is going to be pretty strong. Companions can also unlock the Mage's Guild, starting with the Starfall ability. This has an 8-second cooldown, summoning a comet, dealing flame damage. Then you've got Reverse Entropy. The companion heals for 8 seconds, and then the parallel skill would give the companion 50 ultimate with a 16-second cooldown. I really like Starfall for the damage here, plus it has a very short cooldown, 8 seconds at base. Plus, you can reduce that even further with the companion-specific traits. This seems like it's going to be a very good DPS skill for companions. The heal is okay. Companions do get better burst heals, usually from their companion skill lines. And then the ultimate generation is currently broken on PTS. I'm not able to test this out, but when it works, then it might be a good addition to your companion build. Our final guild skill line for companions is, of course, the Undaunted. Crimson Font, going to heal companions and allies every 1 second for 16 seconds with a 36-second cooldown. This also gives you the possibility of activating the synergy. Crimson Funnel, which heals 50% max health. Pretty strong heal. Savage Instinct is another option for a ranged taunt. It does upfront magic damage, then taunts the enemy to attack the companion for 15 seconds. Note the cooldown, though, 36 seconds currently on the PTS means you're not going to have a good uptime on taunt. If this is your only source of it, you get another synergy here as well. And then Skeletal Aegis, this is the companion's version of Bone Shield. A really nice damage shield, actually. 30% of their max health for 6 seconds. This does have a 36-second cooldown currently, much longer than the, 6-second damage shield from the one-handed shield skill line. I think this skill line is really interesting. I like that you can get synergies for yourself with it. But like we talked about, the main challenge is just the cooldown of all these abilities, 30 plus seconds. You combine it with some reduced cooldown gear traits, might not be too bad. Definitely worth checking out. All right, we're moving on to companion class skills. These are leveled up through combat, and your companion should be getting a new class skill about every 3 levels or so, all the way from level 1 to level 20. Ardent Warrior is basically the DPS skill line for Bastian. Fiery Flail does flame damage and sets an enemy off balance for 7 seconds with a 12-second cooldown on this skill. Then you've got Scorching Strike. This deals flame damage and additional damage over time for 8 seconds. 16-second cooldown on this one. Then you've got Crag Smash, which is a ranged DPS skill. It does physical damage with an 8-second cooldown. Then finally, we do have an ultimate ability for Bastian here in the Ardent Warrior skill line. This is called Unleashed Rage. This is a flame damage explosion, so it's going to do AoE damage as well as stun enemies in that area for 4 seconds. So obviously we can see with skill lines like this that Bastian's class skills are going to be very similar to the Dragonite. We've got the Whip, you've got the Claw, Stone Fist style ability. They are pretty strong options for damage as far as companions are concerned. And I do like the ultimate a lot, actually. It looks fantastic. Plus the fact that they threw in an AoE stun with the AoE damage, I think it's pretty useful too. Draconic Armor is Bastian's tank-focused skill line, starting with Blazing Grasp. This has an 8-second cooldown, and this is basically your chains ability. So as long as an enemy is not a boss and can be pulled in, Bastian can pull them to himself if they are further than 10 meters away. Then we've got Drake's Blood. This is Bastian's burst heal, 25% of his max health, and reducing his damage taken by 20% for 8 seconds with a 12-second cooldown, and he'll only use this when he's below 75% health. Then we've got Crushing Claws, which is Bastian's Talons style ability. It's going to immobilize enemies for 4 seconds around him. This skill line is great, you guys. It's one of my favorites for Bastian. You have a lot of utility here, whether it's pulling in ranged enemies or locking down, big AoE ad pulls. And then the self-heal that he gets is actually really powerful. So all in all, great skill line, really powerful, and I definitely recommend you check it out. Finally, Bastian has access to a heal-focused skill line called Radiating Heart. Kindle, the first ability here, is basically a mini burst heal. He can use it on himself or you, as long as either one of you is below 75% health. Basalt Barrier is a little damage shield that also increases healing received for the target by 20%, so his version of Igneous. And then Searing Weapons is a unique damage buff that Bastian can apply, so 16-second cooldown here, but it does increase your damage done with light and heavy attacks by 20% for 8 seconds. So nice utility skill here as well. So for this skill line, Kindle is one of my favorite abilities. It has a pretty quick cooldown, so it's going to be a nice clutch heal, either for Bastian or for you as the player. Now, I want to experiment more with the other abilities, specifically Searing Weapons. That looks like a pretty nice buff. Maybe combining that with a heavy attack build. I don't know. There's some cool options there for sure. And then real quick for Bastian, just wanted to note that the companions do have racial passives, so his tough passive is going to increase max health and damage done. Let's talk about Mirri's abilities next, starting with Deadly Assassin. This is going to be her DPS focused skill line. Shadow Slash. Slashes an enemy, dealing magic damage, setting them off balance for 7 seconds with a 12-second cooldown. Warp Strike is a gap closer and DPS skill combined. 16-second cooldown on this ability. And then you have Slayer's Blade. This does bonus execute damage if the enemy is below 25% health. Otherwise, she will not cast this. And it does have an 8-second cooldown. In the skill line as well, you do get the ultimate ability called Impeccable Shot. Mirri marks an enemy and exposes their weakness, causing them to take 20% more damage for 3 seconds. She also does a ton of damage herself, almost 25k physical damage unbuffed there. So pretty strong single target ultimate ability for sure. And as you can see with Mirri's DPS class skills, she is basically a Nightblade, having those Nightblade style abilities. I do really like the Executioner ability there. It does have a pretty quick cooldown, so you should be able to get that going quite often. And then, like we said, the ultimate is strong. It also makes the target take more damage from everyone, so keep that in mind for some cool synergy options. Living Shade is going to be Mirri's tank-focused skill line. Ghostly Evasion causes her to dodge the next attack while also reducing her damage taken by 20% for 8 seconds. And this will only be triggered when she's below 75% health. Then you have Mask of Torment, which is a AoE fear ability. 8-second cooldown on this one. And then Twilight Mantle. Mirri is going to heal for 25% of her max health and become invisible for 6 seconds, causing most enemies to stop attacking her. My favorite ability from this skill line is going to be the Fear. This is great for locking down targets, whether it's single target or AoE trash pack mobs. It's going to be quite powerful. The other skills I'm still not sure really how to use. Obviously the heal and the damage reduction is nice, but since she goes invisible and stops tanking, you're going to get smacked by the boss instead. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to tank with Mirri. Soul Thief is Mirri's healing skill line, starting with Life Absorption. This has a 12-second cooldown, deals magic damage, and then heals the companion or a player back for about 8,000 health. Remember, this can be buffed further by companion-specific gear traits that buff healing. You also have Blood Transfusion, which is a very strong single-target heal over time effect. It lasts for 8 seconds with an 8-second cooldown, so she can keep this up pretty much indefinitely. And then finally, Life Siphon. This is sort of the Sap Essence version for companions. It does AoE magic damage and then heals the companion and their allies for a similar amount of health. 16-second cooldown on this skill. So I like this skill line probably the most for Mirri. It's very good at healing. You have AoE healing, single target, and heal over time. So basically everything you need for a healer build, maybe combine that with some of the other guild or weapon skill lines that we've seen. If you put those together, you could definitely come up with a strong healing build for Mirri. Of course, Mirri has racial passives as well. The dynamic passive increases damage done by 3% and healing done by another 3%. All right, everybody, and with that said, that's going to wrap up our guide to companion skills. Coming soon to the Blackwood chapter for the Elder Scrolls Online. And if you'd like more information on these skills in a written format, we do have an extensive written guide over on hacktheminotaur.com. Check out the link in the description and the pinned comment below for that one. Of course, if you liked the video today or you found it informative, don't forget to crush that like button. Make sure you're subscribed right here for many more ESO builds and guides just like this one. And let me know what you think of companion abilities so far in the comments section. What skills are you looking forward to using the most on your companion build? Let us know. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, there's links down to my social media down below. You can also check out that join button. It does support me and it does give you access to some pretty nice perks, including exclusive members-only videos. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.